live scripting, live scripting, live scripting. And I forgot my iPad. Live scripting, live scripting. We are live, and there we go. Boop, boop. Let me just grab my iPad. It's right there.
Hello, everyone. Aria streams, but it seems like I am doing the introduction. So, hello, everyone. This is IDQG Sound, and you are here for some ReaFIR programming.
Indeed. Um, yes, hi, I'm also here, and I'm just fixing my iPad. You would think after, what is this, the 7th week in a row we're streaming, I would have figured out my setup, and you would be wrong. But
Yeah, we are never ready. We are never
yeah.
done with our setups. We are always looking for that next piece of gear, and we are always forgetting the piece of gear that we should have enabled and installed and everything. Yeah.
And I do have a bone to pick with OBS, and that is that all the settings you may want to have presets for, you can't save. So I can save all these scenes and like move stuff around, but like when I record my tutorials, I do it in 2.1. When I do the streams, I do it in stereo. Sometimes when I'm doing classes, I do mono. And those things you can't save. You gotta keep resetting your OBS. So if anybody from OBS is among the...
I know a
Oh
fix for
yeah?
this. I know the solution. Yes, you can save a set of scenes. This thing called a scene called. But you can also save a profile.
Oh.
It's all your settings, like the audio stereo mono or 2.1, and you can also save like the stream quality, all those sorts of things you can save. Of course, that is disabled now because you're streaming, but be able to manage profiles the same way you manage scene collections. The caveat is that sometimes when there are some configurations that if you change, you have to restart OBS, and it will not tell you so. So when you change the configuration on the settings, it will warn you saying, oh, you need to restart OBS. If you save that on a profile and you switch, it will silently just not change that setting. And I guess that whether it's mono or stereo is one of those. So you would have to go to the different profile and restart, but it's better than there.
Cool, thanks for that. I should have checked this top menu. I feel like when you have a full screen thing like ReaFIR, I look at this stuff, and then with smaller apps, I never like look up there to see what's going on. So that's cool. I'll explore that and probably hit you with a bunch more questions. So hi, if you're joining us, this is part 3 of JSFX Scripting. I'm assuming we're gonna get the usual viewers, maybe a couple of new people, and in the latest development to this script is that I think I broke it. So what I should also be pulling up is the old audio cookbook, or the EQ cookbook. I don't even know why I typed audio in there, but it should show up. And I think this is the one we were using. And last time we just made a simple high pass, I think. Nope, this is the wrong one. Oh, we did a low pass. Okay. Oh, it was ship a zoo. So then I went and I started, because you know that the rest is kind of like, in terms of what we're doing, the same. It's just, you know, writing new formula and stuff. So I went ahead and did that on my free time. And is this still the wrong thing? This doesn't look like the thing I was using. I think this is the right thing. Libaudioverse. Yeah, there it is. So we made the low pass, which was this one, and then I went and wrote all this code into the script, and I also created a new slider up here called filter type, and this one works as a drop-down menu. So it has a default value, and then it has overall 9 possible values, and you can go in increments of 1. And then at the end of this, if you open one of these squiggly fancy brackets, you can then type string values, and those are what the user will see in the drop-down menu. So, you
can tell that this is like an afterthought.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure that they had sliders and then they were like, oh, we need drop-down menus. Okay, we can shoehorn this in. Check this out.
Yeah, exactly. So, value 0 would be this, and this text will be shown to us, value 1, value 8, and it's very much like any other parameter. And this is called filter type, and the parameter, like these values, will be given to the parameter filter type. And I wrote some notes here which we'll get to in a second. So then at the sample level we have these conditionals. So maybe you can actually kind of explain the syntax of these conditionals and tell me if I did that bit of it correctly.
That seems correct, yes. And I can explain what's going on. So one of the two is the C language. And in the C programming language, you can write conditionals like if then else in the traditional way, the way that we wrote in Lua, more or less. I mean, the syntax is a bit different, but the spirit is there. You say if condition, then what to do, else what to do otherwise. Do you remember that syntax? Yeah, so that is pretty straightforward. But in C, there is also a different way of writing a conditional. And EEL2 is using that way of writing conditional. So in that way of writing the conditional, you don't say the keyword if. You don't start an if that way. You just put the condition right away, which, as you are about to see, this syntax is shorter. So you just say the condition right away. The condition in this case is filter type equals 0. You're checking if the filter type slider is, it's not a slider, it's a drop-down menu, but it's if in the first position, which is a low-pass filter. And then you don't say the keyword then, like we did in Lua, you just put a question mark. And then you have to put a block of code that will be executed. Block of code is delimited by, in C, the block of code would be delimited by curly braces. But in EL2, it's delimited with parentheses. Okay, so now you have a block of code. And then to continue to say what else to do in case the filter type is not 0, you put a column. And then you put a column, and then you could put a block of code there. But you did not put a block of code there. What you did instead was to change this condition. You could have written, we didn't, but we could have written if then else, and. So now you have a bunch of conditions. Is code. If the first thing is not true, is the second thing true? If so, run this block of code. Is the third thing true? If so, run this block of code, and so forth. And that's what you're doing. So you're saying, is the filter type equal to 0? If so, run the block of code in parentheses. Otherwise, you could do any conditional, and you could put any expression there that would be a condition. In this case, you are still checking the filter type. So you're saying filter type equals 1, question mark. So you're chaining this and 1. But I'm curious to see what you did on the last one.
Right.
Because on the last one, you will not else, what should I do?
If that means
Okay,
if the filter
okay.
type is not 0, not 1, not 2, not 3, all the way to not 8.
Yeah, so if it's not any of those, what do you want to do? And you have to put a block of code there. A possible block of code that we could put, and I think that is the source of your problem in your script. By the way, I think we found the problem. But what's happening here is EEL2 is interpreting this as filter type equals a question mark block of code or column, and it says, okay, the next thing is going to be the else block. So if the filter type is not 0 to 8, I'm going to run the next expression. yn2 equals yn1, which is part of the, not part of the calculation of the b's and a's that we'll need as coefficients for our formula for EQ. The yn2 equals yn1 is part of the logic of shifting the values around to remember the previous the previous inputs and outputs that we're going to need. So this breaks everything because you are no longer shifting all the results in the correct way, and your filter type will never be something different from 0 to 8. So you are never going to do that line of code. So what we wish to do, I guess, in this place is to say, don't do anything, because this will never happen. And we can, I think, we can express an empty block of code by just saying open parens, close parens, semicolon. And that will say, okay, now if none of the above block is empty, doesn't do anything. But this, now the next lines will execute every time, a bunch of things. But we'll see if there is something else going on.
Check it out.
But did you touch the rest of the code?
No, I didn't mess with it too much because I figured it would be something like this. I figured it would be, because I guess I didn't have a syntax error here. I had a logic error. So the script can't tell you that your logic is flawed, right? It can just tell you, oh, you're missing a semicolon there.
Yeah, and it's interesting to talk about this because we are not just writing for ReaFIR. It seems like there is a syntax error, but we are not just writing for ReaFIR. We are learning how to write programs. And ReaFIR has an analyzer for syntax. It's called a parser. It analyzes the syntax and tries to see if the syntax is correct. In fact, it is telling you that the syntax is incorrect on line 113. So there is something that analyzes the syntax, but that's not the only kind of tool that we can use as programmers. There are other tools called linters and static analyzers, and they try to catch logic errors to some extent, or at least style problems. So for instance, if you don't indent your code correctly, it will warn you about that. But it can also sometimes catch these kinds of logic mistakes. And it is more sophisticated than just a syntax error. In fact, doing static analyzers was what I was working on when I was doing a PhD. So that's why I'm interested in the topic. But I don't think there is a tool for that in EEL2, but there are linters and static analyzers for other languages, including Lua and C and C++. And if those tools are available, sometimes it's cool to enable them and see the kinds of warnings that they give you, especially because Apple was not using a linter or any kind of static analyzer that would catch a mistake just like the one you made. And the error was not on an EQ that is kind of a game that we are developing. No, the error was like in the cryptographic algorithm that checks for, I don't remember exactly what it checked for, but it checked some kind of key or certificate, some kind of permission that was super important for the system. And because of an error just like the one you made, where someone forgot to say an empty block at the end, then some part of the routine was misbehaving and was not checking the thing it was supposed to. So it was a major
Right.
bug. This thing that caused like major issues because of a simple problem like the one you had. So if we had any kind of linter or any sort of static analyzer for EL2, we would be using them. And in other languages, it's cool to use this.
Cool.
Yeah. That's the end of my tangent.
So the error is on this line actually. It seems because we're in 114, so the error is up here. Maybe this open brackets, close brackets. Like, does this mean, hey, this is empty?
Yeah, so maybe EL2 is not too happy about this. I'm not too experienced with this to actually be able to tell. But we can put a dummy statement in there, and this dummy statement will not do anything. Yeah, it can be something like just a number. Just put the number 0 there. It doesn't do anything, but then it is an expression. So there you go. That's how you put an empty block there. And I guess you don't need the parentheses anymore.
Yeah. Oh, if I just go 0 like this.
Yeah.
I had a question actually regarding this, which I hope.
Oh, actually, alternatively, instead of putting a 0 there, I think you were going for something good there. You were starting to put a string there, and I guess we can put a string that reads like, this never happens.
Okay.
So the code like documents why we are doing this. And I don't think you need the parentheses.
Oh,
I think
just
that the string is already a value, so I think it will work.
This light blue band on the bottom, right now it says, recompiled okay. When it's an error, sometimes like it's larger than the strip it's in, and here it's fine on EL2, but on Lua it can be annoying. So is there like a way to have that printed like in the console message or something like that, so I can like resize it and actually keep seeing it as I move around?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think of a workaround. So it depends on what is causing the error. If you have a syntax error, your code is not even going to run, so you won't even have a chance to try to call something that would call some function that would show a console message or something. So if you have a syntax error, then that is really hard to recover from. It has to be recovered from at the ReaFIR level, but we're not developing ReaFIR code. We are not just But depending on what caused the error, so if your error is something like, it's very common for you to try to use a value that you think is a number, but it's actually nil. So if that is your error, then there is a routine in Lua. It's a function in Lua that you can call. It's called error. So you just say error parentheses and you put whatever in there. And this will stop the execution of the script right then and there. So even if you have something like a loop, it will just stop the execution of the script. And ReaFIR will show a box that tells you where in the code that line was. And whatever you pass to it, ReaFIR will try to show you. So if it's something like a number or nil or a string, you will see the number there. If it is something like a media item, we saw that a media item was a kind of value in Lua in ReaFIR. So if you have something like that, I think it will not show anything useful. I don't think it will show something like, this is the media item number 3 in track number 2. No, it will just show something like light user data, whatever. It will barf at you something. But that's, I think, is the best you can do. And yeah, the IDE for writing JSFX and Lua in ReaFIR is okay. It has autocomplete of sorts. It is okay. The live view of the variables on the right is brilliant. But let's not pretend that this is an awesome IDE. It's okay.
Bo says, what's on the agenda today? I guess to begin with, I kind of broke the script, so we're figuring that out. And then after that, we'll get into, I guess, yeah, like now we have the code, and we're gonna find out how can we make it educational. So yeah, a couple of things that I needed to check. I put some notes here. Here, I don't exactly remember, but peaking EQ, yeah, there it is. Oh, okay, so it says 1 plus alpha divided by 0. This to me is ambiguous. Is that alpha divided by 0 and then add 1 to it, or is it add 1 to alpha, divide that value by A?
I suppose that the document was written with the same arithmetic rules and the rules of operator precedence that apply in EL2 as well as in many other languages, including Lua and C and so forth. So I think that this means alpha divided by A, not 1 plus alpha quantity divided by A. So I think that what you did by just copying and pasting was correct. And the same precedent. They happen first to do additions and subtractions.
And then, okay, so what I noticed while testing this, and let me make sure that this track is muted, I'll even double mute it, is that I'm noticing that the Q and frequency values, once they get below a certain amount, things begin to break. So if we turn this on, and let's just use the low pass that we had before. And why aren't we getting anything come in is another question. Why aren't we? Why? What's the deal with Lua? Why aren't we getting white noise? That's a whole new situation. Maybe because it's muted? Yeah, okay. Because I have...
Say that your drive volume was too low, but that's okay. It's the noise volume that matters.
Yeah, no, I think it's because of the preference to not process muted tracks. So when I muted it, it was like, psych, I'm not doing anything. So right now this works, and what I figured out is if I bring the frequency down... Oh, this time it worked. Okay, frequency is fine. On some others, I think it may not have been fine. But the Q, when you start playing with it, at one point it breaks. Oh, it didn't break. Maybe it was a syntax situation. Oh, boy.
Maybe. But I saw already another problem. It may not be with the high pass filter. I don't think it's with the high pass filter, but we can review all the equations because I think there are some other issues there. At least there is one other issue there. So scroll down and there is somewhere where you say sin instead of sin omega.
Oh. I double checked this so many times. And
yeah. The low shelf filter.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, and it was yellow.
And there you're using sin omega with lowercase s, and in other places you're using capital S. So I think that would also be an issue.
It's capital for sure. It's so embarrassing how many times I checked like spelling. Okay, capital. Okay. That should be all right.
And then there is another thing that I want to do with the code that is just for readability. What you're doing right now is you're saying filter type equals 6 peaking EQ, for instance. And I like that you put that comment there because the comment translates to the thing that we are looking on the document. And I find that excellent. And I think we can take a step further to try to document what we're comment that says peaking EQ. I mean, suppose you had this number 6 floating around in other parts of the program. You would have to keep putting the comment there. And maybe if you put another filter type before the peaking EQ, then your picking EQ is now number 7, is filter type number 7. That could throw things off, right? So what if we define variables? The variable names will be things like APF, peaking EQ, low shelf, and they will have a constant value. They will not change. Their value will always be the number 5, the number 6, the number 7. But then we can say filter type equals peaking EQ, which is readable, makes more sense than filter type equals 6. And if we need to reuse these variables elsewhere in the program, we can. So I'm calling them variables, but in fact, they're more like constants because they're not going to change.
Yeah,
you see
that
what I
would
mean?
be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So in computer science, there is a fancy term for this. It's called an enumeration. So what we are going to do is to define an enumeration. We can do that in the init block because these variables are not going to change. And we can say LPF equals 0, HPF equals 1, and so forth.
Cool.
And you may not want to do all of them in the stream if you don't want to do a bunch of copy and paste. But you do need to remember the semicolons.
Oh, get the shots out, everybody. Cool. Okay, so I guess walk me through the LPF one, and then I'll again kind of do that after. So now I just changed this to LPF.
Yeah, and then you can even remove the comment because now.
Cool. Yeah, that would be awesome, actually. Cool. So my question is, here when we're enumerating, it knows that this 0 we're talking about is the 0 ascribed to filter type automatically?
No, there is no relationship between the LPF variable that we are defining to be equal 0 and the LPF label. Slider 4 has a label called LPF, and the fact that they are named exactly the same is a pure coincidence. In fact, when you go to other ones like band pass filter, constant skirt gain, in that case, you cannot have a variable with spaces in there. So you have to put something like an underscore. And then the names will not be the same, but that's fine. There is no relationship between filter type and LPF, the variable. It just so happens that you know, as a programmer, that LPF needs to be compared with filter type. In fact, if you want to take this a step further, then maybe you could name these variables like filter type underscore LPF, filter type underscore HPF, and so forth. In other languages, including C, and Java and many other languages, there is a first-class citizen. You can say, I'm defining an enumeration now. In EL2, we don't have that, so we're going to pretend that we have one by having this naming convention. And the naming convention could be filter type underscore, and then the filter type.
So it's more like, so when I say here LPF, it goes, well, what's LPF? Oh, it's 0, so filter type equals 0. So I can also say gain equals LPF, and then gain would be 0. Okay.
Yes, you could do something crazy, like when you're defining beta, you could say beta equals square root of A divided by high pass filter, and it completely doesn't make sense.
Cool.
But it works because HPF is just the number 1.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, so I'll do that for the rest of the script then, kind of on my own time then.
Yeah, but go ahead and do the when we define LPF, the variable, go there and say filter type underscore LPF, so we know that it has to do with the filter type.
Okay, so give it a little more, cause like this. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess my other question was, well, we'll see if the thing that the error I was experiencing happened again now that I fixed the syntax error. I'm still like iffy on whether the bounds of Q are set like according to this formula. And another thing is like this formula in front of each of these. That's nowhere in our script. So what's the deal with that?
So this formula is something called a transfer
Mm-hmm.
function. And I'm not too solid on this part. I'm now studying the filter design aspect of this. So maybe in the future we could come up with our own
Mm.
equations, which is something you can do. It's not, impossible for us to come up with our own
Mm-hmm.
equations. And when you are doing that, you start with one of these transfer functions, and then from there you come up with the A's and B's, the
Oh,
coefficients.
okay. Cool, cool.
But what the transfer function is representing is where do you want to attenuate in the frequency spectrum, where do you want to attenuate and where do you want to
Mm.
boost. And then you have to isolate the A's and B's from that function.
Mm-hmm.
And you can think of it as given each frequency, so maybe your transfer function has an input called
Mm-hmm.
S. So I think that S would be one of your frequencies, like 200 hertz, and then the age of S would give you the boost or attenuation at that
Gotcha,
frequency.
gotcha.
But that's not something we need to represent in our code because we are only interested in computing
Right.
the filter
Mm-hmm.
result. We are not interested in analyzing how the filter works or in, at this point, not even drawing the filter on the screen. Any EQ worth its money will have some sort of drawing representing what the EQ curve is. Well, actually, now that I say this, there are other kinds of EQs in which you just have 3 or 4 knobs and you don't see a
Right.
drawing, a graph of that filter. So I guess you can do a filter without having the drawing, but transfer function could
Mm-hmm.
be useful.
Cool.
Because then you could feed all the different frequencies to the transfer function and you would get back a number that would represent where you need to draw the line.
I guess actually by design, like since kind of the aim of this is to be a little bit of an ear training tool, we don't want even visuals. We want it to not give you any visual clues and for you to just listen, kind of like the end goal of this. Um, which Bo was saying also, we could have just built that feature on top of an EQ that already exists, but I think this is also just super illuminating. So yeah, so that part is very cool. Like I'm learning so much, and it's one of those things where I'm having all these like hippie revelations, like whoa, man, it's all connected, man. So I'm very into that bit. Um, so okay, so I guess, well, at least the ones that I thought were causing the issue are not causing the issue, but maybe let's kind of do a little bit of a test up to this point. So maybe I can pop out the old. I can pop out the old. These two, and maybe I can just minimize this for a second, and we'll do. I did, but let's do it one more time just for good luck. Recompiled, okay. So high pass filter. Okay, it's high passing, and if I play with the Q, yeah, we can see that boost happening kind of near 14K, and that boost
Can
can
we
be
hear? Can we do an EDM sweep
sure.
using
What
our
I am
EQ?
going to do for safety is put a limiter on the master, so that nothing weird happens. And what's a light limiter? I think JS in this case would probably be lighter on the old CPU. Uh, oh, you got a
Use
limit?
my
Oh,
yeah.
you gotta use Leonardo. Yeah, I gotta use Leandro Facchinetti's limiter. Oh, what a beautiful thing! One thing, boom. So nah.
Yeah, and I wrote that one live, so you can that one.
Cool.
And also you can peek at the code. It's like you will be able to tell how this
A
works
limiter seems very
just by
simple, like in the realm of things, right? Uh, yeah.
yes. So there is a weird
Mm-hmm.
explaining this, but the thing that does the limiting itself, just by looking at it, you can kind of tell what's going on. So you take the
Mm-hmm.
maximum and the minimum between the limit amplitude and whatever sample you have in your channel. So there is a bit of complexity there because we're dealing with multiple channels and we are computing the limit amplitude using this weird formula. I explain all of this in that video, but the way this works is it's a hard clipper. It's a limiter that is just doing a hard clipping. So if your wave goes above a certain number, I will just chop it off. I will say maybe your sample is 0.6 and you are saying that you only want to limit at 0.3. So if your value is 0.6, I just chop it off to
Cool.
0.3. If your number is 0.1, I leave it untouched.
I was actually thinking in my head, I was thinking it would be like, okay, take the value from SBL1 and SBL0 and multiply it by, I guess this allows you to set a dB amount, but I guess like if you just take the value from SBL1, value from SBL0, multiply it by 0.9, then you kind of set a ceiling, like a hard ceiling, over Saitha.
You are describing is something that will attenuate, but it will do so for every sample.
It will bring the whole thing down.
And on a limiter, you're not interested in lowering the volume of every sample. You're only interested in lowering the volume of the samples that are above the limit. And also, your samples could be clipping. So ideally, samples are between -1 and 1. But if they're clipping, they could be 500. And in your limiter, you have to take that in account.
I see, cool. So yeah, but now that we have this in place, then I think it's safe to start hearing this stuff. Do you want to hear it on a sound that's an actual sound, or do you want to hear it just on white noise?
I was thinking just tell that the filter is doing what it's supposed to.
In which case, let me, where is it? Come over here. Okay. So, and let me know when you hear that.
I can hear it.
So I'll play with the frequency. We got a little bit of a cue, so let me kind of make this cue a little nicer. Beautiful. And let's play with the cue. So now it's very subtle. Subtle filter. This sounds like the beach. Yeah. Cool. Let's check out the LPF. Ooh. This sounds like traffic when you're in a hot car with the windows closed. Which I don't know why I have experienced that in my life, but...
What is so cool about this, I think, is this. Because we are filter, but when you filter enough, we can start to see a wave.
Yeah.
It's no longer so random because we are filtering out some of the frequencies.
And let's adjust the cue a little, get a thick cue. Yeah. It looks like, you know, when you like play acoustic guitar with and film it with a specific frame rate, you start to see like some of the string vibrations in a very kind of cool way. That's very nice. Okay, let's go. I know what constant peak gain is. I'm actually not sure what constant skirt gain is. So let's check that out. Like, see if we can just see from what the sound is doing. Okay, so the cue thing, like, I still feel like there's a point at which it's just not doing much, and then suddenly it begins to pop out. Nope, that didn't happen either. Okay, play with the free. Oh, whoa! Did you hear? Did you see that? So my guess for what constant skirt gain is that, so as you move this across the spectrum, it feels like the Q amount is adjusting to the power. Like it's now wider and it's now narrower. But it's hard to tell that because of this being logarithmic, like the ranges that we're seeing are warped in the way that they're shown. Whoop. I like what happens there. And let's check out constant peak gain. Oh, slightly quieter. Okay, that works. And oh, actually, so the gain seems to sometimes not work either. But I guess with band pass filters, like you usually have just a frequency and a Q.
Yes, so in the document that we are referring to, they say that I think in 2 of the filters, I don't
Probably
remember
it would probably have a roll in notch. No, maybe then it will be just the low shelf and high shelf then.
I don't remember, but you where dB gain. That's the name where
yeah, it seems like in the low shelf it's doing something, and maybe the Q isn't doing something here. Oh, it is doing something. Yeah, okay, cool. I had a question.
Yeah, so deep. It's all.
Okay. I had a second question for you actually. With this, and I mean, like we don't need to get into it today, but would it theoretically be possible, like when I come to this drop down, let's say when I go to the high pass filter, we don't need the gain dB for this to like disappear?
I think you have very little control over the display sliders. If you want to have this kind of control out the interface by hand, instead of using this, what you can do is just hide out the slider. Know how to do that? You just put the name of the user interface for the oscilloscope and the spectrum analyzer. They react to clicks, so that's something interface, and you can draw your own which sliders are showing and hiding. There is a new feature in ReaFIR 31 that in your JSFX display all the sliders. So if it makes sense, all the sliders, maybe you have a visualized things and you want to hide visualization mode, and it's something that's something we can do now in ReaFIR. Maybe we could model our game that way somehow. You could hide all the sliders and then have some sort of interface for you to try to guess the parameters, and then we show the sliders. Or we could do something else. Maybe we can show the sliders for the things that you can drag, and then we can show using the graphical user interface the answer.
I can tell you actually, like, kind of what I like, the way it kind of feels in my head. So yeah, like basically it's kind of like I think all of this is now fixed. But yeah, so you put the random EQ on like a track with a bunch of items on it, and then like the user can kind of select a difficulty level. So I think the easiest thing to kind of hear in an EQ is like which band was soloed. So we would actually have like kind of preset band like cuts. So maybe the first band would be like 200, the next one will be like to 1K, then it will be like to 2K, and then it'll be like, or maybe 1K to 10K, and then it'll be like 10K plus. And then so the user can like select the difficulty. So like, I will just solo one of these 4 bands, you tell me which one it was. Then I will cut one of these bands, you tell me what it was. Then like, was it a high pass or a low pass? Then like the harder difficulties, it's like, well, I'm gonna band pass something, and then you tell me like, did I boost or did I cut, and whereabouts. And then this would actually be kind of easy. And then ultra hard would be like just anything is possible. It's like God mode. Like, I'll do something to your sound, and you tell me what it is. And then the user would kind of say like, okay, let's go. And it will play the item like dry. Then it would apply that EQ. Then like if the file is really long, it will just keep doing that. And then when the user is like ready to take a guess, they would think of the guess basically, and then when they're ready, they can just reveal the answer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And obviously open to ideas.
So you like what you
Mm.
it did our game, so it taught you the concept, I don't know, delay, and then it would throw a delay at you, and you would have to think, I think that this is a quarter note delay, blah blah blah, and then it would show you how well you did. It was a really cool game. I forget the name of the thing. In any case, yeah, I think that that is okay, and I like doing that. And now it's a matter of thinking how we can represent these ideas in the tools that we have available to us. And I agree with you that I don't think having a graphical user interface that shows the filter, the drawing of the filter, I don't think that that would be too helpful. So I think that we sliders and drop.
Cool.
So here's how I
Okay.
we could have different effects for each one of the levels. That will make things easier. Inputs. When you're playing the game, you are trying to guess with the frequency from 20 to 200 and so forth. You have that on a drop down. Have the tiniest bit of graphical user interface, be able to like click, and it will just be a answer, and then you click on it, and then we show the answer, and we can even do something. Play again, because as I said, you cannot. So I don't think we. Oh, and sliders and drop downs as output. We can. So let's play around with this for a moment. Go to the source for this effect.
Okay.
Like the number 3. And that should change the drop down on the interface. Put the semicolon and save it, and let's see.
My only goal is by next month to not forget the semicolon. And so I saved it. Yeah, it went to.
And change. the filter type. So we can use sliders and dropdowns as output as well, which is something that some effects do. Very simple effects do that. In fact, you are about to drop a master limiter on a track. Correctly has a slider that acts as output. That slider is the attenuation. If I
do you want me to grab it and check?
Just something we can do. We can use dropdowns and sliders as inputs or as outputs. So what if we have a section that, and the reason why I say that we should have different effects for the different, I guess, stages of the game is because we cannot show and hide individual sliders. But I'm planning on using the sliders as input and output. So in some cases, you will want to have an input that reads like frequency. And in other cases, your input will be, is this a low pass or a high pass or something like that?
Yeah.
Right? At least for the last stage, we want to have a question that is, what is the kind of filter? But that question does not apply to the previous one. So we'll start with the simplest, probably, and we'll just have one drop down that is like, what is the frequency? And then we'll have the bands in there. And then we can have another drop down that is, in fact, an output with the answer.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That would be very cool.
And it's also, it may be worth looking into something that I have possible. A JSFX can have a trigger. It's like a button you can press. So we can go to the JSFX docs real quick.
Sure. I'm gonna do one thing before I will definitely forget in 10 seconds, and that is, I mean, what we have so far I want to keep as just a functional EQ and play with it more. So I am going to copy it onto another thing called cookbook EQ, and let's do ReaFIR IEQD Bodhi. Bob's NY has left the building. Eh? It feels like sometimes, you know, people are busy. Okay, and I'm just gonna put that here and save it, and actually I'm gonna call this like this. All right, that's just to keep, and now we can play with this one. So JSFX documentation, yes.
So go.
Okay. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, sample block. Loop. Yep.
This, right?
Yeah.
So we are now playing with something that we can mess around with. Okay, so let's just use this variable. So just just use the variable, say trigger, and save.
Semicolon.
And it needs to be lowercase t, I suppose.
Okay. Ooh.
Unfortunately, they are just labeled from 0 to 9, and I don't think there is any way for us to change the label. And it would be hard to I mean, we only need one button, that is the enter button. So I think it would be hard for us to communicate that you have to press 0 to enter, right? Yeah, so we'll do something else instead. We'll do a trick with drop-down menus instead of using actual buttons. Cool. Right, so now all we need to do is some shenanigans with the sliders and or the drop-down menus, right? Yeah, so let's go to the slider section in the beginning of the document. And which of these stages do you want to do first?
Maybe let's start with the high shelf, low shelf, because that seems like we already have everything we need for that. Because I think for band soloing, we may also need to write some new, or I guess we can use a band pass instead of band solo. But yeah, what do you say we start with high shelf, low shelf?
High shelf or low shelf? Or do you want to also ask what is the frequency?
No, yeah, I think just, is it high shelf or low shelf? Just the easiest possible like EQ guessing for level 1.
Fair. So how about we start by finding the inputs that or finding the possibilities that we want to account for. So you said certain frequencies like 20 to 200 and so forth. So let's try to tune this EQ to be in the position where we would want to present to the user.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So now I guess it will be the frequency, that filter type, and everything makes sense.
I mean, like, the way I kind of like always learned it, and some people like divide the spectrum in many more ways. I always do it in 4, and lows are 20 to 200, low mids are 200 to 1K, high mids are 1K to 10K, and then highs are 10K to 20K. So should we start with that as a...
So how do you want to do this? Do you want to ask the user, is this a high shelf or a low shelf? And do you want the high shelf to always have the same cutoff frequency?
Yeah.
Or do you want to have a random frequency, but they don't need to guess
it will
that
be
part?
random, but they don't need to guess it. I like that. I think that would be more... It'll be easier to just kind of like learn one thing. Yeah, I like it to be random, but they don't need to guess the frequency.
Okay, so I guess you already know which frequencies you want. So what we have to do is just pick high shelf or low shelf randomly. And we need to pick a frequency, or actually a band, randomly. Only user to try to guess. The slider is just a drop down. So here's something we can hack real quick.
Okay.
Why don't we put on the sliders 1 to 4, on the names of the sliders, why don't we put a minus?
Okay.
That will hide all the sliders. No, it's not before the variable name, it's before the description.
Gone.
There's still one left.
And do the same here. Splat. Gone.
So now let's create slider 5.
Okay. And
I don't know exactly what to call this variable yet. Let's say that this is the, I guess, how about we call this filter type guess, or guess filter type, because that's the user's guess. And then let's make this slider be a drop down.
Okay. So I'll choose this, and right now we're just doing 2 guesses, right?
Yes, it's only high or low shelf.
And I'll go, so low shelf. Oh, I shouldn't put a dash, I guess.
I guess it's okay to put a dash there.
Oh, it is? Okay. When the color changes, I freak out. I guess we're about to find out.
It's okay, but I guess it's okay.
And then I will need to do splap, and I need to say take, I guess. High shelf, low shelf. Cool. Okay.
And how about we have a third option, which is in fact the first option, which is empty. So just type a comma right before low shelf, And then there, I guess when you load the effects into a track, oh, it doesn't
What
show
if
up.
I put
Okay,
a
that's
space
interesting.
here? Okay.
There you go. So now when the user loads the effect, it says take a guess, and then there is a dropdown, but there is no, or maybe we could call this option take a guess, and we don't have any label. So the dropdown reads take a guess, and you click on the dropdown and you see
Oh,
the
I
options.
see, I see. Cool. I like that. Yeah, I love that.
Do you like
yeah.
that?
So that says take a guess, and then so I just replace this with like a space.
Yeah, so here is a cool trick. If you just try a space, it doesn't show up. But on the Mac, on a PC, you do this differently. But on a Mac, you can hold Option and hit the space. It doesn't type, oh, you have something
I
bound
have
to
something
that.
assigned to that. I can.
Yeah. If you, so I'll just explain what this is. So a space is just a space, but space, it inputs a different character. This is something called a non-breaking space. It's a space where a line cannot break. So if you're writing a long document and you have something, you don't want a space, you don't want the line to break between doctor and aria. You don't want the line to be blah, 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 doctor, new line, aria. You want these two words to be together. So you can input an option space, which is a non-breaking space.
Okay.
And if you input that and save, then ReaFIR will show that as a dropdown
But
without a
visually,
label.
we don't see any difference.
We don't see the label because it's a space. It's there, but it's a space.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know
Cool
this.
trick, huh? Yeah. So now we have the input, the guess. Let's do another one of these dropdowns to be the I'm ready to answer. Or maybe not. Maybe you can just react to the fact that the dropdown changed. How do you want to do this? If the person just selects low pass, do you want to immediately say, oh, okay, this was your guess? Or do you want them to have to press something to say, this is my guess?
I guess if they say something, like if it's easy to do something like submit or something, then that would be nice. Just to avoid like misclicks, or let them just kind of like make sure.
Okay. And I like that in the sense that it's, as you say, it's going to prevent people from clicking the wrong thing. I don't like how you have to press two buttons to play, and it's nice if you can just iterate on this fast, maybe. So you could just take a guess, and you would be right or wrong, and it would take you to the next one.
Oh, I see. It's, yeah, cool. I like that then, yeah. I definitely want to...
Okay, so we don't need any sort of submit button. I'm not sure. I mean, I think we'll need a submit button for the later stages where you will have to guess more parameters, but and maybe we want something that is consistent. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking like ahead to see when not doing it. Because, okay, for example, if in the ultra hard difficulty they also have to guess the band, then maybe we would need two drop down menus. So the first one says the type and the second one says the band, something like that. So it's like you did a low pass, you did it at 2000 or at 200. So if we need two, then I feel like submit would be more useful in that case.
We can also, even in that case, have one of these initial states like the take a guess state. And then if you have changed this state in all the dropdowns, we consider that that is your answer.
So I guess we don't need a submit per se, and this could go a lot faster. Maybe actually what we can have instead of a submit is like a next. You know what I mean? Like if you want a new question now, the EQ will kind of let you kind of hear your guess. So if you are wrong, you could kind of review, hear it again. Or if you were right, you can kind of like solidify it, and then when you're ready for a new challenge to be submitted to you, you say next. You know what I mean?
I think that is a fine idea, but I think that we can leave
Okay.
it for later.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think? Do you want to take note of this? I mean, you have a document already, so you may want to take.
Oops, wrong thing.
You
Sure.
just take the guess by changing the drop down.
Sure, yeah. Submit or next question. Feature. Yeah, this is just V1 anyways. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so now we are able to take a guess, and once you take a guess, it'll say another drop down will say like correct, incorrect.
Yes. How about we change this take a guess to guess the filter type?
Okay. Whoopsie daisy. Guess the filter type. Cool.
Cool. So next we need a drop down to say, I guess we need to say two things. We need to say you were right or you were wrong, and the answer. Or do we want to just say the answer? We can just say the answer. The person will figure it out, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, if it's something else, yeah, I guess, yeah, exactly. Let's go for the simple. So filter type answer.
Yeah.
And we go 0. Whoopsie daisy. 0, 1. And oh wait, should this be 1? Not, because that's incorrect.
Actually, it should be. Yes, it should be 1 because we are taking these steps of 1. Yes.
So should I just go, or yeah, maybe we should do the same thing. So the first thing is like answer, right? Like the correct answer is.
Yeah.
Maybe even tease them with a we, or maybe you can't do 3 dots. Can you do 3 dots? Okay.
I guess you can.
And yeah, so
here is another trickery you can do on a Mac keyboard. On Windows and Linux, it's different, but you can hit Option and then semicolon, at least in the US keyboard, and that will give ellipses.
I didn't know this either. And then, so for now, the answers are just the same as the guesses we have. And shablam, and so option space. And save that. And do. Okay, I love the way this is looking, actually.
Yeah. There is one thing I would probably change, which is to put a bit of space between the guess and the answer, because later we'll have multiple inputs, and let's put a space there. Yeah. And it seems like by default, these sliders are the number 1, so it's always defaulting into low shelf. But that's okay, because if you load the effect into a new track, it will pick up the default value from the slider, which is 0.
Cool.
So that's okay. So next, I guess we need to... So how about this? How about we go to the slider section and we write the logic to pick up the input and present an output, and then we later connect that to the rest of the game. So later we pick up random low shelf versus high shelf and bands, and then we do the actual game. So what we want is to check. Oops. We want to check the filter type guess. If the filter type guess is not 0, it means that the user just input an answer. By the way, what do we do with the user input? After they do the input, do we want to like immediately present a next
I
challenge?
guess we need to give them some time. Because it's also useful for you to like hear it, be like, oh, I was wrong, or oh, I was right, and kind of listen for it one more time.
Yeah, so in that case, I think we will need that button that you were talking about.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, or we can just present it for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, like after 5 seconds, it's gone.
Yeah. How do you want to do it?
Yeah, I like the 5-second thing.
Okay. So on the slider, on the slider block, we want to check if the filter type guess is not 0.
So I go filter type guess equals. Oh, what is not equal? Is it? What was it in Python? I'm trying to remember. No, I can't remember. No, that's greater than. Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, is it question? Is it like this?
Okay. Yes, it is like that.
Like this. Then then what we want to do is to like check the filter type, check the guess value versus the filter type answer.
Well, I guess what we would do that to check if the person got it right or wrong, and we would want to do that if we wanted to say you got it right versus you got it wrong. How do you want to present this? Do you want to say you got it right, you got it wrong, or do you want to just give the answer?
Yeah, I feel like the easier way, the like version 1 would be just to reveal the answer, and the user will know that they chose the correct or the incorrect one, right?
Okay, so let's say that we picked low shelf. So you can say filter type answer equals 1. And now you can start to see how these magic numbers are all over, because filter type guess is different from 0. What is 0? And filter type answer is equal to 1. What is 1? So I guess it would be beneficial to have some of those enumeration variables. And then we would have something like filter type guess underscore no selection equals 0. Filter type guess underscore low shelf equals 1, and so forth.
Yeah. So
do you see what I mean?
Define maybe that stuff. So should I define one low shelf, and we'll then just keep track of all those shelves being number 1?
That is okay as long as all the inputs match. So if your filter type guess and filter type answer have low shelf at the same position, that will work. And I guess in our case, it kind of makes sense. We have the guess, the filter type on one side, and we have the correct answer is at the other side. And then all the types will be the same, that's for sure. So I guess it works. You can just have a low shelf variable, and then you can say filter type answer equals low shelf.
Let's see. Yeah.
And then semicolon, close parenthesis.
Is it okay that this is on the same line? Okay.
It is okay. I prefer to have a new line there, but it's up to you.
It'll be better because it's like something is being done versus this is just a parentheses we would read.
Yeah. And then right after the close parents, we need column, and then we need something, but we don't know what we are going to do yet. I don't think we are going to do anything. So we learned that we can just put a string that reads no up. We're not going to do anything otherwise. And we are communicating that intent. So
like this.
And then we need a semicolon. So now save this and reset both of the drop downs, reset them. and then change. So make a guess for the filter type.
Cool.
And then it changes to low shelf. And you
Yay.
guessed it right. So now we know how to change the answer, but we said that we wanted to have that on the screen for a certain amount of time. And then we would reset everything, right?
I'm also finding something now, like maybe it would be good to have some text here, so because once this changes, then the user may be like, well, wait, what, you know? So maybe after this changes to another thing, it would be cool if it's like user guessed correct answer, something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Do you want like a label on the first field?
At least on the second field, I feel like
slider?
We would need it, because once I change this and it changes, then it could be like confusing to people.
Yeah, so maybe what we need is actually labels. We could have a label that reads guess the filter type, and then the other label will be the correct answer is.
So maybe something like you guessed.
And then
correct answer. So that way it's like, well, take a guess, and then if I change it, it'll be like, you guess low shelf, correct answer, low shelf. Spling.
Yes, and I don't think we need to say in the first option, guess the filter type and the correct answer is, because otherwise it's kind of redundant. So we can just put that space there.
Field, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, not there.
Oh, here.
No, so yes, there.
I'll put an option.
And we cannot really say you guessed, because we want the person to guess. When the game loads up, we want the person to guess. So you probably should say something like your guess.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe even to make this completely dummy proof, click to choose your, or just click to guess. Okay. Well, you know, we can always revamp this stuff later too, as we find ways to, you know, make the grammar more.
Yeah, and where it says the correct answer is, I guess you probably can just say like the ellipsis maybe.
Splam. Okay, yeah, pretty. I like it. And if I say...
All right.
Beautiful.
So now let's do the part where we hold the result on the screen for 5 seconds, and then we reset everything. Basically, that's what we are gonna reset everything. So there is, I was just looking at a section of the JSFX documentation that is about time functions, and there is this function called time. It returns the current times, the current time as seconds since a certain date. So what we want to do is on the slider block, where we have the filter type answer equals low shelf, we can also get a hold of the time. And then yeah, so let's do this first. Let's get a hold of the time, because this is the time when the person changed the slider, right? Okay, so let's say it will be a variable that we will carry across all the different blocks. So we'll learn something new. It's a new concept. We actually kind of saw how variables you defined in the init block hold their values on the other blocks. And we are going to do something similar. But how about we define this variable in the init block, just to make things clear. So we can say something like time of selection or time of guess. And then we can say that it's like equal to -1, which will be the value for there is no time of guess yet. In Lua, we would do something like nil there, but in JSFX, all our variables are numbers. There are no nils. Put a semicolon there. And then on the line that we were writing before, on the slider block, right below the filter type answer, we can say time of guess equals time open and close parentheses.
Cool.
Semicolon, and then save this. And then we can see on the right that time of guess is equal to -1.
Yeah.
And when you make a guess, go make a guess. It was updated to a number. This number is the number of seconds that have passed since January 1st, 1970.
Okay.
But we don't have to care about this. What we actually want is to just store this value, and we know that it's in seconds. So now we need to go somewhere else that keeps running, because the slider block will only run when the slider changes, right? But now we want somewhere else where we keep running. So it could be on the sample block. Or it could be on the block. Because we don't need to check this 48,000 times per second.
Let's bring the block back. Whoops. Block. Okay. And we go.
Then in there, we can check if the current time is 5 seconds later with respect to the time of guess. Well, I guess the first thing we have to check is the time of guess equals to -1? If so, we don't do anything. So check time of guess equals -1.
Then we want to do nothing.
Yeah, actually, we don't want to do anything in that case. So maybe we should check for the opposite. So what we want to check is that the time of guess is greater than -1, or different from -1. Yeah, different from, I guess, is even better. So it's different from -1. And we want to check something else. We want to check that the current time is 5 seconds later. So how do you say and? In Lua, you would say literally the word and. But EEL is, as I said, modeled after C and C++. So it carries that operator over. The operator in Lua would be the word and, but the operator for and in EEL2, do you know what it is? I think it's the same as Python.
This? Cool.
Yes, it's %. So, and the time of guess plus 5, so plus 5 seconds, is less than the current time, which means
like
it has passed.
Right?
So I think it's less than
so
or equal.
This.
It's the other way around. No, you just want to say less than or equal, not
I see.
equal
Like
less
this?
than.
Okay, cool.
Yes. I think that's how you spell out the operator. And it's usually how people say, right? People usually say less than or equal to something, I guess. And then you just say time, open and close parens, because that's the current time. So let's go over this again. So if the time of guess is not equal to -1, that means we have set the time of guess because the person changed the slider. and the time of guess plus 5, so 5 seconds after the person guessed, is less than the current time, that means that 5 seconds have elapsed since the time of guess.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay, so in that case, we want to reset. So in that case, we want to say filter type guess and filter type answer are equal to 0.
Equals 0. Filter type answer equals 0. And
so you need semicolons, and you could have done this in a single line if you wanted. We learned how to do that when we said SPL0 equals SPL1 equals 0. I kind of like your way better, but because it's more explicit.
So
but
I would
you
just
could
say
have
filter
done it in a
type guess
single line
equals
if you
filter type
wanted
answer
to.
both equal to 0, right?
Yes, you would just say filter type guess equals filter type answer equals 0.
Cool.
That would work the same. But I like your version better. And then we need to say what else to do. So if time of guess plus 5 minus less than or equal time, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, don't do anything, really. Right? So you can just put a don't do anything there. A string that says don't do anything. Or nothing will happen. Whatever. Semicolon. So yeah, go save that. And then immediately the drop-downs reset. Okay. So take a guess.
Whee!
And let's wait for 5 seconds.
Beautiful.
And it resets. Do you want to let the person feed their own audio through this, or do you want to always send a white noise thing?
I like it if the option is there for them. So, you know, this would just go on a track and then they would put whatever they want in there. Yep. I like that option.
Yeah, I like that too. So that is already in place. So it seems like almost everything is in place. We have a way to guess. We have a way to tell the answer. We have a way to reset. And all there is left to do is connect the things, right? We need to find a random band, and we need to find a random type of filter. And we need to set that. We already have variables for the type of filter and for the band. We just need to randomize them. So how about we do that in the slider section? Because we have a filter type guess is not 0. If this filter type guess is not 0, then we do the answer and everything. But if the filter type guess is 0, then that's a perfect opportunity for us to pick random values and assign them, right?
Yeah. Cool. So I can just bring that up here, like filter type guess equals 0, then yeah, I guess that will work. Well, there is already something we can use here where it says nothing will happen. That's when filter type guess is 0. So we could do that logic there. In fact, I think it makes more sense for us to do the opposite, because chronologically, the first thing that will happen is the filter type guess will be 0. Yeah, so let's invert this whole logic. Let's say filter type guess equals 0, question mark, and then when it is 0, we will do a bunch of things. So put some parentheses there. Column. When filter guess is there.
We do this other block. Yes, replace that with a semicolon.
Oh, a semicolon.
Not a column, a semicolon. Yeah, and then you can remove this filter type guess different from 0, because if the filter type guess is 0, the first block will run. If it's not 0, the second block will run. You don't need to say that again.
Sorry, say again.
You can just remove, you can completely remove as different from 0 question mark.
Oh, because else it would be different from 0. I see.
Yes. So now we need to assign the variable that is the filter type. I forget what the variable name is.
We call it filter type.
And we want the filter type to be either, I guess, high shelf or low shelf, right?
So I guess let's set those as well. I guess we already defined low shelf. So I guess this is the tricky bit.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to have enumerations that read filter type underscore something, because in the filter type slider, the high shelf is a certain number, but on the filter type guess, it may be a different number.
Cool, I got you. So filter type low shelf equals to 7. Let me just triple check that low comes first. Yeah, so low shelf is 7, high shelf is 8. Shablamo. Oops. And 8. And semicolon. And
change the variable name. It's filter type high shelf.
Yeah.
And then on the part that reads filter type guess equals 0 blah 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 in our slider block, we want to set the filter type variable, which is the slider. We want to set it to either low shelf or high shelf. Well, the way we can do that is by saying filter type equals. And then we need to pick either the number 7 or 8 randomly. There is a way for us to get a random number in JSFX. It is a random. The function is called random, parentheses. And it returns a number between 0 and 1. Oh, it's actually not called random. It's called rand. And unfortunately, I forget something about this function. So here, if you just call the function, it will return a number between 0 and 1. We can test this with a trick that I don't think I taught you before. So on the blue line below, it says command, and then it gives you a bunch of options. One of these options is peek. It's command Q for peek. What peek means is you can select some code and you can peek at its results. So you can select rand, including the parentheses.
Like this? Oops.
Yes, and then hit command Q, and it will evaluate that expression, and it will put the result below. So go ahead and do that.
I'm doing nothing is happening when I press command Q.
Oh, it's command K for peek.
Oh, sorry.
K.
Evaluates to 0.5.
Yeah, so it evaluates to a random number, and do it again and again and again, and it will evaluate to different numbers. Awesome. But there is a possibility for you to pass a number to rand. So you can call rand of the number 2, for instance. Let's go ahead and do that.
Is it like that?
And then select the whole... Yes, and then select the whole thing and press command K again. So now it will be a random number between 0 and 2, but it will not be integers. That's the part that I was trying to remember, if it would be integers, but it's not. So it's just random numbers between 0 and 2. So I guess what we can do is we can say rand without an argument. We can just say rand, and it will give us a number between 0 and 1. And we can say, is this number lower than half? If so, low shelf, and otherwise high shelf.
Cool.
So we can just say rand, and then right there where your cursor was on the previous line, we can say less than 0.5.
Here?
No, keep the parentheses. That will give us a number. And then we can say, is this number that was given to us less than half? And then if so, so we are going to ask, is this a number that is less than half? So we can say question mark. And then we can say filter type low shelf.
Oops, flitter. This is what I do all the time. Equals.
Yeah, I think it's still wrong. The way that I do this is I usually copy and paste stuff because it's kind of a long. Yeah, it's kind of a long variable name. And you don't need to say it that way. We are going to do everything in one line. You're going to see how this looks in a second. So remove the filter type equals in the beginning of the line where your cursor is right now. And put this on the previous line. And then at the end, you can say column high shelf or filter type high shelf. Don't need a new line there either. We are going to do everything in a single line.
I like it. Cool. And then we need a semicolon.
And then semicolon. And that is it. In this line, we are checking, is a random number less than half? If so, the filter type is equal to filter type low shelf. If the random number is greater than half, then the filter type is equal to filter type high shelf, all in a single line. So the way that this works is, if the slider is 0, then we'll pick a random filter type. Yeah, let's go ahead and save this.
Recompile, okay.
And our filter type guess initially is 0, so right now we should have picked a random filter type. Unfortunately, the filter type is not showing up on the right pane, but maybe if you scroll down, we can take a look at the filter slider. Oh, it's 8. All right, so it picked the right thing. So save again, 7, and that number may change to 7.
Beautiful.
Awesome. So there you go. We are now literally picking a different filter type. We would be able to hear the difference.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then when it says on the line below, filter type answer equals low shelf, we should say filter type answer equals filter type.
Whatever it was. Right.
So we give the right answer. And then when we reset, we don't need to do any extra work because we are already resetting the filter type guess. And then when we do that, I believe the slider block will run again and pick a different filter type. So I think that this game is already working.
Let's check it out.
Can we give this a try?
So I'm going to say low shelf and...
Oh, there is a mismatch. The line that says filter type answer equals filter type is wrong because the filter type is like 7 or 8, but our answer maps to like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So now again, we need to use that trick. Filter type equals filter type low shelf.
I'll do it right here. Okay.
Yes.
I see. I got you. Like this.
Question mark. And then I guess the variable name is low shelf. Just low shelf.
Low underscore shelf. I'll unify these values because it's getting weird.
Yeah, column high shelf. We don't have a variable for that, so I guess it is a column 2. I'll let you clean all
I
this
will.
up later.
Okay, so we're seeing some clipping, but we'll take care of that in a second. So if I go low shelf, it will say, oh, psych, it was high shelf, and 5 seconds later, it's back to...
It will reset.
Yay.
Yep.
Very cool.
And I guess we kind of have a working game. I mean, it's clipping for whatever reason. Maybe there is an issue with the implementation of the high shelf and low shelf. I don't remember trying those.
One thing that I'm wondering if we need to do still is that so we say, okay, either choose high shelf or low shelf, but maybe the frequency and queue is just set to whatever it was last before we hit our sliders. So can we say that, like, just as an example, so if you chose low shelf, then choose the frequency as 200 and choose the gain to be somewhere between like -6 to +6. And then if you chose high shelf, gain is still -6 to +6, frequency is now 10,000.
That makes sense. So maybe we will change the initialization a bit, where it says filter type gas equals 0. We are doing the initialization in the slider block. And we are just setting the filter type, but we could also set the frequency and the dB gain and the Q. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
So I want to write here, right?
Yes, in that block, yes. So I guess we can rewrite this. Do you want the frequency to be dependent on whether it's a low shelf, high shelf?
Yeah, because otherwise I think like if we choose the same frequency, it'll be obvious from one side to another. So if we choose 200, high shelf will be hella obvious. If we choose like 10K, then low shelf would be hella obvious.
Yes. So let's change the line that we have a bit. We have a line that reads filter type equals rand, blah, blah, blah. And that was cool because we were able to set the filter type in a single line. It was super concise. But now we want to set not only the filter type, we want to set the frequency and more things based on whether we are picking the low shelf or the high shelf. So let's transform this single line into that other form that we learned before with blocks of code. So we can have something that reads like rand. Yeah, the thing you were doing. You got this.
And we'll go else, and we'll do splaps, and we may not need this later. Or we need one of these. Or...
I think we need that. Undo a bunch, Command Z, because I think you changed... Yeah, that guy we don't want to change.
This guy is extra.
Because that is... Yeah, maybe the parentheses need to be indented to help read this. But that column was for the filter gas equals 0.
Okay. I see. That goes all the way there. So let me just check. Okay, so we said if it's less than this thing, then it'll be low shelf. Else it'll be this. And no, wouldn't we need?
You need one more close parenthesis
here. Okay,
yes.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Cool. Logic between a logic we're doing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I want you to change these lines so that the first line that reads for filter type equals rand, blah, 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 take the filter type equals and take it out.
We're just saying...
And put it explicitly. Yeah, put it explicitly on the lines that read filter type underscore low shelf of filter type underscore high shelf.
What I did, but I'll just go like this and select this boy and copy it down here.
Now we need to distribute semicolons all over. So you may have noticed that the thing compiled and the last statement in a block doesn't need the semicolon. It's optional there, but it's a good practice to have it there. And for that same reason, I think it's good to have a semicolon right after the first close parens on the next line. Because it is finishing the line that started at rand blah, blah, blah. In fact, I think you should select this whole thing between the cursor and rand. Select that whole space and hit tab.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes things easier to read. So now, we don't want to, we did this change because we don't want to only affect the filter type. We also want to affect the frequency and maybe the dB gain Q as well. So you can go ahead and set frequency that you think makes sense.
So for low shelf, let's use 200. And actually for the gain, it could be either side. Like it could choose, it could choose like maybe -6 to start with. So to avoid redundancy, should I just set the gain like on the initialization block? Okay.
You can do that.
Let's.
Or you may want to, it doesn't matter because in the end the variable will be set and will not change, but you may want to have that on the block where we have the frequency right now, because you may want to change that depending on the type of filter. So you may want to have that there.
Yeah, let's
up to you.
Future-proof this for sure. And down here, I'm gonna choose frequency equals. Let's do 10,000 for now, and go dB gain. And so I guess would it be so? Yeah. So if I want, can I kind of do the same thing? So assign a random value to this, so it'd be between +6 and -6. So it could boost or it could cut, and it could be low shelf or it could be high shelf.
Yes, we can do that. The problem is that we probably want to avoid a dB gain of 0. Well, not really, right? We can have a dB gain of 0 just fine.
I see. I feel like no, that would be unfair.
I mean,
because there'd be no change.
Yeah.
So maybe either it's -6 or it's +6, let's say.
Yes. And you already know how to do this either or situation. It's the same thing we did with rand less than half. But now we are talking about dB gain.
I see. So if it'll be like generate a random number, and if it's less than half, then do then you will do -6, and else you would do, let's do +3. Did I write that right? Cool.
There you go. Yeah, so you just need to distribute semicolons all over your program and you will be good to go.
I will invent a new type of equalization before I learn this semicolon.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate artifact. Again, it's a leftover from C and C++. It's an unfortunate artifact from the 70s and 80s, and it is not present in modern languages like Lua. It's unfortunate. It's something that doesn't trip you up. It trips everyone up. Yeah, it's something there. Abdul asks on the chat,
Hello.
Hi, it's nice to have you here. What language are you coding with? It's a language called EEL2, and it's a language specific to ReaFIR. It allows you to do real-time audio processing and video processing as well. It's super cool. And it is inspired by C and C++ and some other languages, but it's EEL2, and you can learn more about it in the previous streams. There is a video in the channel about the idea of scripting for ReaFIR.
The links are in the description too if you want to learn more about the languages and stuff, if you're joining us for the first time. And yeah.
So let's see if this works. Let's play the
Cool.
game.
Time to play the game.
Oh, and now that we set the frequency
Uh-huh.
clipping, so it was probably a variable that was
doing something
crazy.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I even want to use a sound for this. Cool. So
Cool.
I'm going to go to this warped drums. Why not? I don't remember what it was, but I'm just gonna paste this here, and now it's time to play the game. So it's a filter is already on my thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to guess?
I mean, I need to hear the original
not?
sound too. I am not that good with EQs.
Oh, I see. You need to hear the original to then.
I mean, you need to bypass. I mean, you need to bypass the effect so we can actually hear the original sound.
So I guess that's something else that would be nice to later implement. Like maybe the first 5 seconds it plays it dry. Or no, yeah, you gotta manually bypass. Okay, yeah, I see. Oh, and another thing is, right, I guess we can later make this stereo, because right now it's mono, so it's now two things are happening. So I'm gonna just mono this real quick. Okay, I know the answer, but I want you to guess.
I don't hear any difference.
I hear very little difference, but I think it's a high shelf. Yeah.
There you go.
It's a bit of a dull-ish sound, so I guess that's another thing where it's up to the user.
Was it a high shelf that was attenuating or boosting?
Oh, it was slightly attenuating, like, but it felt not like -6, or it is that the frequency content of this thing is pretty, like, not super rich and not super bright. But I was hearing a slight amount of attenuation, or maybe I was hearing 6. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. You know, like this, giving the user the freedom to choose their own sound is cool, but then if the user chooses a sound that's not very full in frequency, then that's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, but I think it makes sense to let the user choose their own sound, because sometimes they want to learn how an EQ affects a guitar.
Let's try that. I got an acoustic guitar right here. So dry. Oh, again, it's the mono. I didn't hear a change this time. There may be something up.
I don't hear any changes, no. Can you make like the frequency more salient and maybe even the dB gain be like
let's do that. Let's make...
or -12 and 12. I don't know. Let's make it very drastic.
I'll make it 9 just because boosting too much may be dangerous. And let's do -18. Let's do 9. Whoa, boy.
I want to say hello to my wife, who is taking care of the baby and also commenting on the chat.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to my wife, who always takes care of the baby while I'm working and streaming.
Thank you so much. You are facilitating this whole stream. Big shout out. Subscribe to Linda. I don't know if she wants subscribers at this point. And yeah, by the way, if you have to go, you know, you can always call time of death on these streams, because you are a family man.
Yes, I guess we'll wrap it up, but we can try to play once again and see if we can get it.
Cool. Sounds good. Moment of truth. Let's play this. Okay, this is the sound. No, nothing is happening. I don't even... Now I'm like, why did I even hear an attenuation? Did I just, like, psych myself into hearing something?
Well, we can always do white noise and use the spectrum analyzer, and we can
True.
see the change.
Let's science this. Pop, pop, pop. I'm gonna just. Where's my other guy? There it is. Okay. So we put this thing on here, and let me just turn it off. Yeah.
I can see the change. It is a high shelf that is attenuating.
So this, I think this goes back to what you were saying. Like, remember when I was like, if we have multiple instances, if we save, will it be relayed? Maybe it's got something to do with that. Like, I need to reinitiate these effects or something for it to come in. But cool.
Bo heard a bass cut, which I guess is exactly the opposite of what is happening.
Well, okay, let's take our guess. Splamf, correct, and it will reset in a second. So as it resets, it did the same thing.
It may reset to the same
thing.
And it may do the same thing 5 times in a row. That's how random numbers work.
And I think it did do the same thing. Come on, do something different. Come on. Oh, question. So we reset these values, but did we actually reset the EQ itself? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that just generated one?
The EQ reacts to the slider.
So then the question is the slider value running again as we take a guess and it resets it?
Oh, that's a good question. I know that the slider section runs when you change the slider yourself, but what if you change it through code? Does the slider section run again? I don't know the answer to that, but we can check it. A quick trick to check whether the slider section is running is, in the beginning of the slider section, first line, let's write a line that reads, I don't know, debug plus equals 1.
Plus equals 1. Like this?
Semicolon. Yes. Now, anytime that the slider section runs, it will increment the debug variable by 1, and we can see the debug variable on the inspector on the right.
Cool, beautiful.
So save that. Let's see the debug variable. It's going to be above.
There it is.
Debug equals 1. The slider section run.
Something,
The slider section run.
Oh, so there.
And when resetting, the debug is not incrementing. So you were right. We were not running the slider section again. That is unfortunate. We can copy and paste code, or we can move on to a different topic, which I guess is going to be your homework. Your homework is going to be to fix this. And your homework is going to be in the documentation. A way for you to define functions. This part that is doing the reset. You call when you initialize or when you... Yeah, I guess you call this when you initialize. And you also call it anytime you reset the sliders.
Okay, cool. That's a fun homework. And also, I would just kind of unify the variables in terms of language and grammar and syntax type, just because sometimes some things have underlines, some things have different things, so I'll do that as well. Okay.
Oh, there is something else that we may want to try real quick. JSFX, and there is a function called slider change. And you can call this function to tell ReaFIR that you changed the slider. And it seems like it's a good practice for you to call this function anytime you change the value of a slider. So when we are doing the reset, which is below on the block.
On the block, that's right.
In the reset, right after we do the reset, we could call slider change. And then we need to tell slider we changed.
Which is
so we need to say like slider
5 and 7 we did.
Okay, so let's say slider change 5, and let's see if that will again.
Cool.
No, you literally say slider 5. It's a weird function.
Okay, I see. Slider 5. And run that bad boy. And so I go
semicolon there, just to be sure. I mean, it's the last statement, so it doesn't need one, but it's a good practice. So do you still have the debug going on? Yes. All right, so save that, and let's try it.
I'm hearing, well, I'm not hearing much. Let's hear something. It still sounds like I have more lows, so I'm going to guess high. Oh, I used the wrong slider. Flip. Yeah. And when it resets, the debug is still full.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to fix that for us. So it's an internal thing.
Okay.
That, it may update some parts of the display, but it doesn't seem to be necessary. So, yeah, unfortunately, that will not save us. So you will have to learn how to define a function and call that function from all the places where we need the function to be called.
Yeah. Cool. So I will, other one. I'll look into this and hopefully I'll figure it out. And well, I'll see you tomorrow on your channel at 1:30.
Yes. So tomorrow on my channel, we will be talking about, so it will be the converse. We will talk about specifically a song that will be the song that I play in the beginning of my streams. I wrote a short song to go there, and that's what we are going to record tomorrow. We're going to record guitars and vocals. Yeah. So that will be tomorrow at 5:30 UTC.
You know, we have to add your kid crying as a sound effect too, with some reverb and echo at the end.
I tried. I have a podcast with my wife, and I tried to make a song based on the baby crying, and I couldn't really make a song, but I could warp his cry into a monster that I put as a blooper at the end of an episode.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Take care. Thanks for watching, everybody. A big shout out again to Linda for being the real MVP. Thanks, Bo, for being always with us. Thank you, Abdul Aziz, for joining us. And join us again tomorrow and next week. And take care of yourselves, and we'll see you very soon. Adios. Don't forget semicolons. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I'll end it here.